Hello everyone, this is Kieran from Keys Minis, and today we are going to take a look at this light brown leather recipe. So with a base coat of Mournfang brown, we're just going to cover any areas of leather you're going to paint. I'm painting this Grymnir model, so it's got a nice large area of leather all across the model. Just take your time, thin your paint down. You roughly 1 to 2 coats should get a good coverage over a black primer on with this Mournfang brown. Maybe 3 if you're working more thinner layers like glazing layers, but two very good thin down coats and you should get a really good cover. Try to work in smooth strokes in one direction as much as possible, but it depends on the shape of the model. It sometimes forces you to change directions. Now we're going to shade the brown, and we're going to use a mixture of a black and a Doombull brown. I'm using AK Intense Black, but you can use any kind of black you want. Just I really like that black overall. And all I'm going to do is shade in any deep shaded areas. If I really want to create a bit of a blend here off some of the kind of smaller folds, I'll just really thin the paint down and just wipe the excess off on a paper towel and work with a very thin glazing layer. But main parts I'm just going to focus on like really deep folds and just create a really intense shadow effect. Now we're going to start the highlighting process, and we're going to use a mixture of Scrag Brown and Mournfang Brown. We're going to try and work in quite a chunky highlighting highlight, so don't worry too much on how much paint you put on certain areas. We can blend it with some scratches and some we can also use some stippling effect to create like some offshoot to create some blends from like the darker brown, the Mournfang brown, just the Mournfang brown layer, or from any areas that have got shadow. So just take your time, pick out the areas you want to. Like I said, with this Grymnir model, there's some really nice intense folds on it to work on, so it's really easy to get. Try and work in your smooth layers again, direction of point where you can, but use stippling effect or scratches to blend it in. We're just going to follow the same process but with Scrag Brown on its own. So where you've probably highlighted a certain area with a chunky highlight, you're going to work in a smaller defined area of that chunky highlight, about 80% of that chunky highlight. Again, we can create scratches, and all we're basically doing is creating a layer of paint now, building the layers of paint up. And these will, if you're working with a bit of water on each time, like you're thinning your paints out, it will create a nice little blend between each layers as it sets and dries. You can work on more defined blends if you're doing higher level pieces with using the mixtures, previous mixture and wet blending, or feathering in with some glazing layers. It's entirely up to you, but you'll get some nice layered effects anyway from just layering up the paint with nice thinned out bits of water. Now we're using Scrag Brown and Tau Light Ochre. and we're just gonna really now start to pick out the higher bits of folds and create a nice starker look. Again, we can work with some scratches and some stippling, but really just take a small amount of paint now on your brush and just take your time, pick out the raised folds areas. You can obviously work into some of the other areas, but you're going to more scratch or stipple in that effect and create a cracked look if that's the look you want to. I did it a little on this one, but I didn't overly do it. Like I've done some previous leather tutorials on worn leather before. I just mainly focused on the folds here, just to create a lighter effect. Essentially we just create a nice stark highlight. And now just the final one. You could leave it with the last layer, but with a bit of white and some tau ochre, we're just going to really pick out the top of the folds where any kind of like crease is, so like the real top. And you can just scratch this out, take a really small amount of paint on your brush, wipe any excess off, especially if you're going to edge highlight like on some of the folds I'm doing here. But just really take your time, and it's kind of almost like a dot highlight really, but we're just really picking out those really intense parts of the folds. Again, you could scratch it out with some stippling effect on the fold, but just take your time and pick those highlights out. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this light brown leather tutorial. I'm also doing some Patreon tutorials as well. I'm trying to do like one a week, maybe two a week, maybe every 2 weeks, and it's basically just anything I struggle to film, because sometimes filming can be quite hard and tricky. So anything I'm struggling to film, or like really small details, I'm trying to create some PDF tutorials over on my Patreon as well. So if you want to check those out, if you're interested, please head over. But if you've enjoyed this, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll be back next week with another tutorial. And thank you for watching.